Our next speaker, Dr. Noha Vice President at the African Fintech Network. She's also the Digital Innovation Lead at FSD Africa UK Aid, founder and Secretary General of Egyptian Fintech Association. Speaking on today's topic, the value fintech brings to the financial industry, banking, insurance, and capital markets. Over to you, Dr. Noha.
Thank you very much, Melvin, for having me. Thank you for availing the platform where we can all meet and discuss matters that actually serves the well-being of the Sudanese and all Africans in general. Actually, there was like a couple of pieces of news that is worth mentioning. The very first one is that Sudan has actually joined Smart Africa. And we all know that the proper ICT infrastructure is the enabler of all digital financial services that we are relying upon to actually tackle issues of financial exclusion that Omar has referred to, and to actually make the financial industry a more inclusive one, more affordable to the bottom of the pyramid, the majority of Sudanese nationals, as well as the small and medium businesses that are mainly the biggest segment that suffers from that lack of access to financial services, whether they are lending, that mainly is one of the key enablers of growth for such companies, or other financial services related to payments and the like. And the second piece of good news was actually the fact that we have launched Fintech Sudan a couple of months ago, Shumul. And again, referring to what Omar has said, that we need a platform and an organization that brings together all players within that fintech ecosystem, whether they are regulators, whether they are incumbents, if they're banks, insurance companies, leasing companies, brokerage firms and investment banks, academia, telecommunications companies, venture capital funds and investment companies and angel investors and the like, bringing all those together in the same room, on the same table, and actually communicating to draft an agenda for growth and development for the entire fintech ecosystem. So I would definitely encourage you all, like after the speech, that you reach out to me or you reach out to Shumul if there are any opportunities that we can collaborate upon or support that we can offer. We'd be more than happy to actually explore it and look into it. And this I say on behalf of all the organizations that I represent. I'm not going to say more than what has been said on the status of fintech currently in Sudan, or the fact that we are operating at like 15% of financial inclusion, as Omar said. And actually in insurance, it's by far a lot worse. It does not even reach 1%. And we all understand the importance of resilience. I mean, when you have limited resources in case of a catastrophe or any form of instability that affects your business, if you're not covered, you're actually left with absolutely nothing, and that mainly affects the well-being of not just the person, but the families, the dependents, and the employees, if there are any. So insurance is a very important tool that we actually need to look into availing it. And luckily, InsurTech has actually managed to not just drive costs associated with the customer onboarding, customer underwriting, the policy administration, as well as the claims processing. They have also supported a lot of large insurers to actually bring down the pricing as well, because this is what is supposed to happen, to actually, once you cut operating costs on the ground, this should reflect on the affordability of insurance products. Fintechs do exactly the same with banks. They drive costs down. They support banks to actually serve segments that they were never able to serve before. I come from banking background, and it's not that banks are bad and they do not want to serve everybody or customize financial services to every segment of the society. It's just that it has never been really financially viable. It was really difficult to make a value proposition profitable when serving the SMEs or low-income individuals. Now, with financial technology, the applications of all the disruptive technologies that we have there, whether it's blockchain and the digital identification of customers and smart contracts that mainly eliminates mediators, whether it's big data and data analytics that makes processes like credit assessment actually feasible for a segment that does not have any credit history or financial history of transactions, none whatsoever. Technology has made it possible to actually serve small and medium businesses and the bottom of the pyramids more properly and efficiently. It was actually like Omar has also provided some information that we can build upon. Definitely seeing it's like we have 37 banks in Sudan and around like 14 insurance companies or so. So a consolidation in the market, when clubbed with the right regulatory reforms as well, can bring in a lot of efficiencies into the industry, and it can support future growth. I'm not going to talk more than that on the status of fintech in Sudan or the value that fintech can bring in to the banking industry, the insurance industry, or even capital markets. I mean, if you look at, you want to increase the number of transactions in the capital market, you want to increase the customer base that is there. And when you look at the actual process and how long it takes an investment bank to actually onboard a customer, it takes an average of 3 months. I mean, it shouldn't be the case. When you look at the brokerage firms and how they run their processes manually and how costly is that and how time consuming and like the long turnaround times, it really doesn't make sense. Fintech technology has provided a lot of digitalization, automation, possibilities in there, and I would encourage every bank, insurance company, broker, investment bank to actually look into the applications that there. One value of starting late is the fact that we have a lot of lessons learned and we do not have to reinvent the wheel. So let us start. What I truly and genuinely want to leave you with before I actually open the door to questions is, what should we do? What is next? We need to put together an action plan that can truly drive the fintech industry growth in Sudan. At this stage, having the right regulatory frameworks in place is one of the pillars for success and can be the right starting point. So we have the Central Bank of Sudan, we have the Insurance Supervisory Authority, and of course the telecommunications ministry. I mean, all those forces need to come together to draft a fintech regulation. I would advise that they actually do it collectively and not end up having one for insurance, one for banking, and one for telcos, because at the end of the day, they are more or less offering financial services, and a more collaborative, complementary approach can actually be a lot more effective on the ground. If a fintech company is selling insurance, there's an element of payment in there, so it doesn't make sense that they're going to have to go for double licensing or the like in the market. So I would recommend the complementary approach. That's the very first pillar, the very first step. Work on the right regulatory reform. Digital identification, AKYC, is definitely one of one regulation that needs to be there. The infrastructure needs to be established. And again, luckily that we are starting late. We have a lot of more advanced markets who've done that before that we can resort to and learn from their experiences. The second step that we need to work on is actually build that pipeline of fintechs. How can we build the pipeline of fintechs, whether for banking, for capital market, for insurance? How can we do that? We need to establish incubators and accelerators. Perhaps I can refer to the experiences that we had here in Egypt. The first incubator was actually managed and driven by the government. It was the Ministry of Communication, if I remember correctly. So now, given the current situation in the market, I would recommend that it would be established and managed by governmental organizations until we prove the market to be attractive enough for international players to come in, who will eventually come in once they see some traction and some success on the ground. I would encourage universities as well to establish their incubators and accelerators. I worked in collaboration with the American University in Cairo to actually establish a fintech accelerator that was the very first in partnership with the bank I used to work for. So I also encourage academia to play an important role in encouraging that entrepreneurial mindset among students and to actually avail the channels and the tools for them to think, innovate, and turn their ideas into startups and MVPs. What happens when you have the right regulatory reform, the right pipeline of fintechs in there? This can drive in investors, like whether they're venture capital funds, whether they are angel investors, whether they're investment firms, to actually approach the market and start operating in there. The one element that we haven't touched base upon, which is the key pillar in driving that innovation and serving financial inclusion and the like, are the incumbents themselves, the banks, the insurance companies, the leasing companies, and the like. They have the technology, or they can afford to acquire the technology. They have the customer base. They have the market and industry know-how and understanding, and definitely they have the licenses. Banks and insurance companies need to start working on their innovation strategies, whether it's open innovation, how they collaborate with that ecosystem of players out there, or their internal innovation, how can they look into increasing their efficiency, their digitalization efforts, their employees' understanding of innovation, and even appetite to become actual entrepreneurs. I mean, whenever you have an entrepreneur coming from within the industry, with the industry know-how, the probability of success of that startup actually grows naturally. When you have the right regulatory reform in place, or the regulatory environment in place, when you have the incumbents actually working on their innovation and changing that mindset and becoming more open to collaborate with fintechs, you have the right, or you have created that pipeline of fintechs in the market, and you have availed funding, whether it's through angel investors, like really early on to support with that pre-seed and seed capital at such early stage, or whether the venture capital funds coming in later at a more mature stage, growth and expansion and the like. You would have like this formula that can actually drive and grow a fintech ecosystem that profits everybody, not just in terms of financial profit and bottom line, but also supporting achieving the objectives of the country and the directions of the government. Fintechs collaborating with banks in partnership with banks have great potential to serve financial inclusion, great potential to eliminate the inefficiencies that are happening in every financial institution operating in the country. They have better understanding of customer needs. They have better agility on the ground. And again, it takes a very simple formula, but a lot of work to be done on the ground to build that nurturing ecosystem for fintechs. But again, we have to start somewhere. And once you start, it's just a matter of time and resources to achieve your objectives, and that's it. So that's all I want to say today. I really don't like presentations. I like to talk to people, relate to their experiences and share some of mine. Now we are open for questions, and we will dedicate whatever time left, and perhaps Melvin can support us with that. We should take questions from the audience and attend to them, if we please.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Noha, for your presentation, verbal presentation, which was quite strong and quite to the point. So in your experience of Egypt, and then you bring it down to Sudan, what are the potentials you see in the line of not alone fintech, but just banking or technology on a whole?
Well, thank you for the question. I mean, today we are focused on fintech because it's the fintech summit, but tech-enabled businesses bring in opportunities across industries. I mean, there's one thing I do believe in, that social inclusion always leads to financial inclusion. And the reason why financial inclusion efforts hasn't worked pretty well in multiple countries is because it was not the right start. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you have a population that is underserved in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of transportation and the like, once you build the inclusive, tech-enabled use cases to serve those needs, I mean, for education, for healthcare, for transportation and the like, you can later on build a layer of financial services on top of that. One reason why this is effective is because you'd already identified the customer and built a trail of transactions that it somehow involves an element of payment. So you have created some form of credit history for a target segment that doesn't have any. So tech-enabled use cases and business models, whether it's in healthcare, and we look into digital health applications, whether it's in transportation, looking into the hailing apps like our Swivel, like Uber and Careem. That's an infrastructure platform upon which you can later on not just offer payment services, but you can also offer lending to the drivers, lending to the individuals who actually, that you know now how much money they spend on transportation. You can simply build a scorecard that is based on non-alternative data, non-traditional data, as we call it, and lend those people. So social inclusion using tech-enabled models is the starting point, is the answer. So we encourage tech in general, not just fintech in particular. I hope that has answered your question.
Okay, now in regards to the Egyptian Fintech Association, so we understand we have an association now in Sudan as well?
Yes, it is called Shumul. Shumul is the Sudan Fintech Association. They are present on LinkedIn and they are accessible. They are also part of the Africa Fintech Network. And now we have presence in 34 African countries, and the number is growing. So I'm really glad that we have established a Fintech Association in Sudan. And this can be the very first step into actually building the nurturing ecosystem for Fintech. And they definitely have all our support.
In fact, Shumul is supporting our event too, you know, by giving a nice panel discussion in this event. And hopefully next event, the African Fintech and Shumul, we can do a larger inclusive event for everybody, for the benefit of everybody. So one question. So keeping the African FinTech Group in mind, association in mind, so putting all that together in a nutshell, in a few lines, what do you see in the future for Sudan and FinTech?
Well, we are looking at 45 million people, 85% out of which are unbanked, 99% are not covered by insurance. What do I see? I see an opportunity. I see great potential. Definitely, I'm not blind to the associated market risks or other types of risks that are present on the ground. But again, high risk means high return. Is there an opportunity there? Yes, there is. Early market entrants are going to reap all the benefit out of it. I mean, if you look on the ground, that usually the very first type of fintechs that grow and expand at such early stage in a market are the payments fintechs. So in the payment space, whether it's digital payments, like digital apps that can be offered by banks, digital wallets that can be offered by banks or telecommunications companies, those it actually has to go hand in hand with establishing the right merchant network, because you need the use cases. I mean, if you just build the wallet and have people put in money and use it, unless you build the use cases, the utilization of the wallet is not going to be the highest. But building the use cases and going hand in hand with building the right merchant network on the ground can actually drive the payments, digitalization, digital economy, digital money, and you name it. That we've mentioned that, we have to refer to digital economy. We can grow the trade between Sudan's and neighboring countries. We can push and accelerate the digital e-commerce industry within the country. Digital economy is the future. I do not see goods being sold off the shelves anymore. It's not going to continue to be that case. I mean, we've seen what COVID has done. And the fact that we had some service providers who were actually capable of selling online and delivering services that contribute to the continuity of life one way or the other. This is a lesson we must learn. So we need to invest into building that digital economy capabilities. And while doing that, we should not ignore or not pay attention to the role green finance can play. We need to look into the impact we bring to the environment while actually doing business, because we've reached a stage where we need to undo some of the harm we've done to the planet. Otherwise, we are going to be dealing with the consequences, whether it's global warming, whether it's absence and disappearance of certain species that have kept that balance for long. I mean, we can talk about the environmental impact of doing business and what green finance can actually value it can bring to our lives for days and days. But again, I had to touch base on that. So the future, great opportunity, focus on digital economy and digitalization of services, efficiency in the financial industry, whether it's amongst banks and or insurance companies or other capital market players. I mean, a significant number of fintechs, insurtechs, like for banking, for other services coming out of Sudan, a lot of investments being driven into the country to actually seize that opportunity once this happens. So I see great potential and opportunity in Sudan. We just have to start acting and doing what should be done to actually enable the Sudanese to bring out their potential.
On that note, bringing out the potential. See, I believe there was a revolution with SMEs and startups, and there is still going very strong. So since I see you're very active with startups and things like that, a small little light on that regarding startups and things like that. What do you think?
Again, we've always had startups. It's just that over the past, 10 years perhaps, it's become more visible. And one reason why it's become visible is due to the amount of investment that has been channeled to especially the tech-enabled startups. But we've always had startups. I mean, when we refer to SMEs, I mean, when you look at the companies, they start small, they grow into the mid-cap or the middle-sized businesses, and a few of them actually grows into becoming a large corporate later on. So we've always had startups. The importance of startups is that they drive employment. They are the seed to the small and medium businesses that there is. And in our market, small and medium businesses actually represent 80% of the economy, and they represent more than 60-70% of the employment in the market in average. So focusing on startups and supporting entrepreneurs feeds into that SME segment that actually drives the economic growth in the country. The value tech startups bring in is like we said, they present the best partner for the incumbents, whether they're banks or insurance companies, to actually do things faster and in a less expensive way, and to tackle market segments that banks and insurance companies have never served before, and hence do not have the understanding of their needs, their lifestyle. So accordingly, they cannot customize solutions to serve those market segments. And it would take us too long and a lot of money to actually start learning now. So when you have an alternative that is available and around, I would encourage you partner with them and see where things go. Fintechs, insurtechs, and other tech-enabled businesses are not competition. They are not there to drive banks out of business. You should rest assured they are there to help and support. So a collaborative approach, promoting partnerships, is the approach that we should all be adopting in banks, insurance companies, and other incumbents to actually reap the benefits of serving the unserved segments and find areas for growth.
Thank you, Dr. Noha, for your time and for your knowledge sharing, and hope to meet you in Sudan next.
Yeah, next time we do it physically, I definitely would love to be there.
Sure. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you.